we do own certain securities which we probably wouldn't buy at these prices. Some of them we would, some of them we wouldn't. We're not unhappy with anything we own. We're not happy with putting more money in. So we're in a zone in some of those securities where we wouldn't buy and we wouldn't sell. Now, part of it, that decision relates to the kind of quantities that we deal in. I mean, if we owned 100 shares of each one of the stocks that we own, many billions of dollars worth, it would be an easier decision to go in and out. But we would face significant costs, including taxes, but on top of taxes, in trying to go in and out of the big positions we have. And basically, we like the businesses. So we are not unhappy. We may feel like we wouldn't want to buy more here, but we are not unhappy about being in the businesses in which we have big equity holdings. Now, notwithstanding all of that, a lower percentage of our intrinsic value is represented by the common stocks we own than just about at any time of our history, with the exception of a couple, the period right there at the end of 1969 when we liquidated the partnership. So we have not made any big statement by purchases of stocks or the ownership of stocks that says in any way says that we think that this is a particularly attractive time to own them. But we are not unhappy with Coca-Cola. We are not unhappy with American Express. We're not unhappy with Wells Fargo or Moody's. Those are very, very good businesses that we own. Would we be buying them at today's prices if we, well, the answer is we're not. We've got money and we may buy more later on. We're more likely to buy more later on than to sell those sort of investments. But there is a zone which, because of size, because of taxes, where we would neither be a buyer nor a seller. And we do not see lots of attractive stocks, but we also don't think that there's as much silliness in the market by far as there was 5 years ago, roughly. Charlie?
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about Berkshire lately is that if you take the last 4 or 5 things we did in the stock market, with a goodly number of millions, but billions really, but small in relation to Berkshire's overall size, our record is much like it used to be in some of the best days, where we were able to move around with small amounts of money. The results were quite respectable, but where we were facing the problems of being enormously rich, where we were prevented from the nimble money-making record of the past. I don't think that's a permanent state of affairs, but it's never going away either. But
explain that one.
Well, what I mean is that I think we may be able to deploy large amounts of money eventually at very satisfactory rates, whereas in recent times we have deployed small amounts of money at very satisfactory rates.
How can investors comfortably invest in any financial service company when a decent percentage of the AAA rated companies have false and misleading financials?
Warren is obviously correct that where you've got complexity, which by its very nature provides better opportunities to be mistaken and not have it come to notice, or to be fraudulent and have it not be found out, you're going to get more fraud and mistakes than you are if you're selling a business where you shovel sand out of the river and sell it by the truckload. And just as a business that sells natural gas is going to have more explosions than a business that sells sand, a business like these major financial institutions, by its nature, is going to have way more problems, and that will always be true. And it's true when the financial institutions are owned by governments. In fact, some of the worst financial reporting in the world is done by governments, and governments, institutions like government banks in China, etc. So if you don't like the lack of perfect accounting in financial institutions, you're in the wrong world.
Well, financial companies are more difficult to analyze than many companies. I mean, it is more. If you take the insurance business, the biggest single element that is very difficult to evaluate, even if you own the company, is the loss and loss adjustment expense reserve, and that has a huge impact on reported earnings of any given period. And the shorter the period, the more the impact can be from just small changes in assumptions. We carry, we'll say, $45 billion of loss reserves, but if I had to bet my life on whether $45 billion turned out to be a little over, a little under, I mean, it'd be I'd think a long time. And you could just as easily have a figure of $45.5 billion or $44.5 billion. And if you were concerned about reporting given earnings in a given period, that would be an easy game to play. In a bank, it basically is whether the loans are any good. And I've been on the boards of banks, and that's, I've gotten surprises. It's tough to tell. It's financial companies. If you're analyzing something like WD-40, or See's Candy, or our brick business, or whatever, they may have good or bad prospects, but you're not likely to be fooling yourself much about what's going on currently. But with financial institutions, it's much tougher. Then you throw in derivatives on top of it. It's no one probably knows, perfectly what some of the, or even within a reasonable range, the exact condition of some of the biggest, banks in the world. But that brings you back to the due diligence question of the agencies. You had very high grade, very smart, financially smart people on the boards of both Freddie and Fannie, and yet, one was $5 billion and one was apparently $9 billion. Those are big numbers, and I don't think those people were negligent. And it's very, very tough to know precisely what's going on in a financial institution. Charlie and I were directors of Solomon, and Charlie was on the audit committee, and I forget the size of a few of those things that you found, but what wasn't found. And that doesn't mean that people below are crooks or anything like that. It just means that it's very tough with thousands and thousands and thousands of complicated transactions, sometimes involving the computations involving multiple variables. It can be very hard to figure out where things stand at any given moment. And of course, when the numbers get huge on both sides and you get small changes in these huge numbers, they have this incredible effect on quarterly or yearly figures, because it all comes lumped in. Those adjustments come lumped in a short period of time. So I just think you have to accept the fact that insurance, banking, finance companies, we've seen all kinds of finance company, both frauds and just big mistakes over time, just one after another over the years. And it's just a more dangerous field to analyze. It doesn't mean you can't make money on it. We've made a lot of money on it, but it's difficult. Now, obviously, a Geico, where you're insuring pretty much the same thing, auto drivers, and your statistics are much more valid in something like that than they will be if you're taking something that like asbestos liability. You're subject to far greater errors in estimation. Doesn't mean that people aren't operating in good faith, but I would take the asbestos estimates of the 20 largest insurance companies. I will bet you they're way off, but I don't know in which direction.